Welcome dear participants, welcome to the SWAYAM course. Today we are going to discuss about what we have already started in the previous lecture, that and module is endocrine system, and this is the week 6 lecture number 3. So in continuation to the previous lecture that we have discussed in the previous lecture, that what is called as an endocrine system, and the various concept regarding the endocrine system, means that what is called as a receptor, and how hormone action is taking place, how actually hormone synthesis is taking place, and once it is synthesized, how transport is taking place, and what is the mechanism of actions. So all these things we have discussed in the previous classes. Today we are going to discuss about the hypothalamic hormone, pituitary hormone, and thyroidal hormone. So in brief, we try to discuss all these things. So first, let's discuss about what we will see in this particular chapter. We will see hypothalamic hypophyseal portal system. What is called as a hypothalamic hypophyseal portal system? Then we will see what is called as a hypothalamic hypophyseal tract. Then different hormones are secreting from the hypothalamus. Then we will see what are the hormones that is secreted from the pituitary gland, and we will discuss in brief about the certain hormones, like especially growth hormones we will discuss. And then we will see what is the thyroid gland, what are the hormones secreted from the thyroid gland, and how the synthesis of thyroid hormone taking place, and what is its functions. So all these things we will try to discuss in this particular class. So as we know that hypothalamus is called as a master gland. Why it is called as a master gland? As we all know, that because hypothalamus is controlling the secretion of other gland. Other gland means the hypothalamus is controlling the secretion of the pituitary gland, and then pituitary gland controlling the secretion of other gland. That's why the hypothalamus is controlling the other hormone secretion. That's why it's called as a master gland. So we'll see what is the relation between the hypothalamus with the anterior pituitary as well as the posterior pituitary. So hypothalamic relation with anterior pituitary is called as a hypothalamo-hypophyseal portal system. So whatever the secretions are there in the hypothalamus, how they are coming into the anterior pituitary, they are coming through this portal system. So portal means system connects the hypothalamus and the adenohypophysis. Adenohypophysis means anterior lobe of the pituitary. So what is called as a portal system? So portal system is a system of veins that drains one capillary bed and carries the blood to the second capillary bed. So here one first capillary bed in the hypothalamus, whereas the second capillary bed are present in the adenohypophysis or the anterior lobe of pituitary. So in this case, the first capillary bed exists in the ventral portion of hypothalamus, and the second capillary bed exists in the adenohypophysis. And this hypothalamic hypophyseal portal vessels link the two. So I told that whatever the secretions are there in the hypothalamus, they will come through this portal system into the adenohypophysis, and then anterior lobe of pituitary will control the whatever the hormones are releasing from the anterior lobe of pituitary, they will control the other hormone secretions. So the neurohormones that diffuse into the extracellular fluid of the adenohypophysis can stimulate or inhibit the release of hormone of the adenohypophysis. So we understood here that the connection between the hypothalamus and the anterior lobe of pituitary is through the hypothalamo-hypophyseal portal system. Next is called as hypothalamic hypophyseal tract. So this hypothalamic hypophyseal tract is a connection between the hypothalamus and the posterior lobe of pituitary. And why it is called as a tract? Because here no that portal system is there, means no blood supply is there. Whatever the secretions that is occurring in the hypothalamic nuclei, they are coming into the posterior pituitary through this nerve tract. So that's why name has been given hypothalamic hypophyseal tract. So nuclei in the hypothalamus release their content into the posterior lobe of pituitary through the hypothalamic hypophyseal tract. This neurohypophysis or the posterior lobe of pituitary is the structure where the axons of the nerve cell terminate and secrete their secretion to these and getting stored. So posterior lobe of pituitary, they are not synthesizing any hormone. whatever the hormone synthesized in the hypothalamus, they will come and remain stored only in the posterior pituitary. They will not, posterior pituitary will not synthesize any hormone. Their main function is to store or storage of hormone which is synthesizing in the hypothalamus. The two important hormones are synthesizing in the hypothalamus and coming and storing in the posterior pituitary is the oxytocin and vasopressin. So, oxytocin and vasopressin. Oxytocin is synthesized by the paraventricular nuclei, here paraventricular nuclei through which oxytocin is secreting, and vasopressin is secreted by the supraoptic nuclei. So, supraoptic nuclei synthesize the vasopressin. So, these two hormones coming through the nerve tract and remain stored in the posterior pituitary, and wherever the requirement will be there, they are getting released from the posterior pituitary. So, these are the several important releasing and inhibiting hormone that are synthesizing in the hypothalamus and then they are secreting from that place. So, what are the releasing hormones are there? Thyrotropin releasing hormone TRH, CRH corticotropin releasing hormone, GnRH gonadotropin releasing hormone, GHRH growth hormone releasing hormone, then inhibiting hormone are there GHIH growth hormone inhibiting hormone and prolactin inhibiting hormone, and releasing hormone one more is there, that is called as a prolactin releasing hormone. So, they have made up of different amino acids and they have different role. Whatever the name is there, they will do the action corresponding to that. Like one example is that TRH thyrotropin releasing hormone. So, what it will do? It will stimulate the release of the TSH thyroid stimulating hormone. So, like that different hormones like GnRH gonadotropin releasing hormone, they will stimulate the release of the gonadotropin hormone like FSH and the LH. So, like this different releasing and inhibiting hormone have the different functions. Now, coming to the another gland that is called as a pituitary gland. Pituitary gland is also known as, it is also called as a hypophysis. So, earlier just now I have discussed the hypothalamic hypophyseal. So, what it mean by the hypophyseal? Hypophyseal means the pituitary gland. So, this pituitary gland is also known as a hypophysis, and this pituitary gland secretes several key hormones and modulates the secretion produced by the several other endocrine glands. Modulate the secretion of other glands means either it will increase or decrease the secretions of the other endocrine glands. So, that is the pituitary is also controlling the functions of the other endocrine gland. This pituitary gland is situated in the depression of the sphenoid bone called as a sella turcica, which places it beneath the hypothalamus. So, it is placed in a depression of the skull, that is called as a sella turcica. Naturally, this hypophysis is divided into two functionally different parts. One is called as a adenohypophysis and another is called as a neurohypophysis. Adenohypophysis means the anterior lobe and neurohypophysis means the posterior lobe. So, first we will discuss what is adenohypophysis. Adenohypophysis is a collection of endocrine cells that secrete a variety of hormones into the blood, and this again divided into pars distalis and the pars intermedia. Pars distalis is the anterior part. Mostly around 95% of the anterior lobe is made up of the pars distalis and only 5% is there the pars intermedia. So, different hormones are again secreting from these two parts of the anterior lobe pituitary. So, major hormones that secreted from the pars distalis include the TSH thyroid stimulating hormone, GH growth hormone, prolactin, LH luteinizing hormone, then FSH follicle stimulating hormone and ACTH adrenocorticotropic hormone. So, these are the hormones which are secreted from the pars distalis. Then what are the hormones which is secreted from the pars intermedia? Pars intermedia correspond to only 5% of the part, and this secrete the MSH melanocyte stimulating hormone, beta endorphin, enkephalins and CLIP corticotropin like intermediate lobe pituitary. So, beta endorphin means here we have to discuss beta endorphin is called as a happy hormone. So, when we are becoming happy and when that time these hormones are getting secreted. So, it is mainly secreted from the pars intermedia. If we will talk about the what are the cellular structure is there of the anterior means pituitary gland, we will find that different cells are there, that different type of cells are there. What are the cells are there? One is called as a chromophilic cell, another is called as a chromophobic cell. So, chromophilic cells means they are the stainable cells and chromophobic cells means they are the unstainable cells. So, the chromophilic and chromophobic cells are approximately 50-50%. So, first we will discuss chromophilic cells. Chromophilic cells are 50% It is again divided into two. One is called as acidophilic cells and another called as basophilic cells. So, acidophilic cells means these cells will take the acidic stain, and basophilic cells means they will take the basic stain. So, acidophilic cells are around 40% of the total cells, and it will include the prolactin and the growth hormone secreting cells. Then what are the basic cells? Basic cells are around 10%, and it includes the TSH, ACTH, LH, FSH and beta lipotropin secreting cells. So, some cells are acidophilic and some cells are the basophilic. Next is the chromophobic cells. Chromophobic cells means cells which are unstainable cells, and these are around 50%, and that represent the inactive state of acidophilic and the basophilic cells. So, acidophilic and basophilic which are not active, that comes under the chromophobic cells. So, these are the cells and the hormones which are secreted from the anterior pituitary. Different cells are there, basically 5 cells are there that secrete different types of hormones. So, which are the cells is there? One is called as a somatotropes. Somatotropes, these somatotropes secrete mainly growth hormone, that is also called as a somatotropin. So, this, what is the physiological function of this somatotropes? Means our growth hormone, it will stimulate the body growth, it will stimulate the secretion of the insulin like growth factor, and also it stimulate the lipolysis. We will discuss in brief detail regarding the growth hormone. Here we are just giving the what are the hormones and their physiological functions. Then next cell is called as a corticotropes. Corticotropes secrete ACTH, and it will do the function to stimulation of the glucocorticoid and androgens by the adrenal cortex. Next cell is the called as the thyrotropes. They secrete the thyroid stimulating hormone TSH, and what is the function? It will stimulate the production of thyroid hormone by the thyroid follicle. Next cell is called as a gonadotropes. This gonadotropes secrete two important hormone. One is called as FSH, another called as a LH. FSH has different role and LH have the different role. What FSH do? FSH stimulate the ovarian follicle, and it will also regulate the spermatogenesis in the testis. So, yesterday we have discussed that means spermatogenesis is controlled by two important hormone, FSH and LH. FSH controls the initial stage of spermatogenesis. It has a very important role. Then second is the luteinizing hormone. Luteinizing hormone causes the ovulation, mainly it have an important role in the ovulation, and it stimulates the production of estrogen and the progesterone by the ovary, and also stimulate the testosterone production by the testes. So, these are the important functions of the luteinizing hormone. The last cell is called as the lactotropes, that secrete the important hormone that is called as a prolactin. Lactotropes also called as a mammotropes. It will secrete the prolactin, and prolactin have important role in the milk secretion and milk productions. So, these are the cells which are present in the anterior pituitary. So, let us in brief discuss about the what is the growth hormone. So, growth hormone, you know that it is a 191 amino acid protein, also called as somatotropin, and is produced by the somatotropes in the pars distalis. So, what are the important function of the growth hormone is there that we need to understand? It promotes the length of the long bones of the body. Then it also promote the protein accumulation, means it will help in the muscle build up. It have a lipolytic effect, and it will reduce the adipose store. So, whatever the fat is there, the growth hormone causes the lipolysis of that, and then it will decrease the glucose utilization throughout the body. In this way, the growth hormone enhance the body protein, it will use the body stored fat, and it will conserve the carbohydrate, because it will not let the utilization of the glucose. So, that is why it says that the growth hormone have two important functions. One is called as a ketogenic effect, and another have a diabetogenic effect. Ketogenic effect, why it is having ketogenic effect? Because it will do the much amount of mobilization of fat. So, that fat get deposited, and then formation of the steatosis is there. So, that is why they have a ketogenic effect. And why it have a diabetogenic effect? Because here you have seen that it will decrease the glucose utilization by the cells. So, what will happen? The glucose will not be utilized, so it will come appear into the blood, and they will give the diabetogenic effect. So, in this way the growth hormone have ketogenic and the diabetogenic effect. One very important hormone is there, that is called as a somatomedin C. Somatomedin C is also called as a insulin like growth factor or IGF-1. IGF-1 is also called as somatomedin C. So, why it is called as a insulin like growth factor? Because it have a amino acid sequence which is similar to that of the insulin. So, that is why the name has been given insulin like growth factor 1. So what is the function here in relation to the means growth hormone? So growth hormone, it says that the growth hormone exert much of its effect through the IGF only, because if one of the experiment has been done where the without IGF they have added the growth hormone, then they have seen that the chondrocyte was not developed fully if they have added only growth hormone without having the insulin like growth factor. So they have concluded that growth hormone exert its effect through the insulin like growth factor, and this IGF is produced throughout the life, but its production is much higher during the pubertal growth period. Then how the growth hormone secretion is getting regulated? Secretion of the growth hormone regulated primarily by two neurohormones. One is called as a GHRH, that is growth hormone releasing hormone, and another is called as a growth hormone inhibiting hormone. So the balance between these two hormones mainly control the secretion of the growth hormone. If whatever is there, there must be a balance between the releasing hormone and the inhibiting hormone. Other than this growth hormone releasing and inhibiting hormone, some important parameters are there, like fasting is there, physical exercise, then stress, high dietary protein and low plasma glucose. These are the factors which also stimulate the secretion of more growth hormone. So if you do more kind of physical exercise, the more growth hormone secretion will takes place. Now, what are the abnormalities there for the growth hormone secretion? So, two important abnormalities there. One is due to the hyposecretion, another due to the hypersecretion. So, one important abnormality is called as a dwarfism, that is occurs due to deficiency of the growth hormone, and this will observe mostly in the larger breeds of the dog like German Shepherd and the Great Danes. This abnormality is not seen in the smaller breeds, mostly it is seen in the larger breed of the dog. And here what is happening, the physical parts of the body develop in appropriate proportion to the one another, but the rate of development is greatly decreased. So later on I will tell you the difference between the dwarfism and the cretinism is that in the dwarfism there is a proportionate body growth, there is not a disproportionate. Although the growth will be slow, but the growth will be the proportionate, there is no unproportionate, there is a proportionate growth will be there in the dwarfism, but although the growth will be slow. And next is that due to the higher production of this growth hormone, important disease called as gigantism. This occurs due to the higher secretion of the growth hormone during the young growing animals. So if the higher level of growth hormone secretion will takes place in the younger age in animals, then this gigantism like condition will develop. Another condition is called as acromegaly. This acromegaly occurs in adult person. The gigantism occurs when it will secrete more in a younger animal, but if the growth hormone secretion is higher in the adult person, then that have a condition called as acromegaly. So in this case, since the epiphyses are getting closed, once the puberty is reached, the epiphyses will become closed, so no further growth will take place. But if there will be more higher production of GH, then that type of condition will take place called as a acromegaly. So here what will happen, why it is happening, it is occurring due to the acidophilic tumors of the adenohypophysis, and there is uncontrolled secretion of the growth hormone. So what are the characteristics are there, the flat bones of the face and the spacing between teeth are mostly affected. So here the disproportionate body growth will take place, one part of the body will grow more, one part of the body will grow less. So there is a disproportionate body growth. So that are the abnormality. Now we will see another hormone adenohypophysis called as a prolactin. That prolactin is produced by the pars distalis of the adenohypophysis. The cells responsible is called as a lactotrophs. So what are the important function of prolactin is that it maintains the milk production in the female animals and will also play a very important role in the initiation of milk secretion in some species. Especially in case of the ruminants, the prolactin needed to initiate and sustain the milk production. So for the initiation and the maintenance of milk production in the ruminants, the prolactin is required very much. Then in case of the birds, especially in the case of the hens, the broodiness is an important phenomenon that is controlled by this prolactin hormone. Broodiness means when the female hens are setting on the egg for the incubation period, that is called as a broodiness. So that type of behavior is mainly controlled by this prolactin hormone. Another hormone is called as oxytocin. That oxytocin is also very powerful stimulant, causes the contraction of the uterus at the time of the birth. So that causes the powerful uterine contraction, and it also have very important role in the lactation, means that milk ejection reflex is mainly produced by due to this hormone, and the milk let down is taking place once the suckling by the calf is taking place to the other, then these hormones are getting secreted oxytocin, and then it act on the myoepithelial cells of the alveoli of the mammary gland, and then the milk secretion will start. So, oxytocin play very important role in the milk let down. Then few of the important properties there for the oxytocin and the vasopressin is that the half life of oxytocin is only 2 minutes. So, that is why if the injection has been given for the oxytocin, the milking should be start within 2 minutes and it should be finished 5 to 7 minutes, whereas the ADH have a half life of around 18 minutes, and both ADH and oxytocin are made up of around 9 amino acid residue, and they have a ring structure and they have a tail structure. So, here what the important difference is there, in case of mammals, human being, the vasopressin is called as a arginine vasopressin, because here at the 8th position the arginine is present. So, that is why called as a arginine vasopressin, whereas in case of the pig it is called as a lysine vasopressin, because arginine is replaced by the lysine here. So, in case of the pig the vasopressin is called as a lysine vasopressin, whereas in case of the human being it is called as a arginine vasopressin. So, what are the abnormality of ADH productions? One important disease they are called as a diabetes insipidus. So, diabetes insipidus is a condition where there is a either absence or severely deficiency of the antidiuretic hormone. So, if there is a deficiency of antidiuretic hormone, then the condition is called as a diabetes insipidus, and these diabetes insipidus are of two types. One is called as a central diabetes insipidus and second is called as a nephrogenic diabetes insipidus. So, central diabetes insipidus means they have insufficiency of ADH production is not sufficient. Nephrogenic means the production will be more optimal, but nephrons will unable to respond to that one. So, that is called as a nephrogenic diabetes insipidus and central diabetes insipidus. So, what are the symptoms here in the diabetes insipidus? There is a polyuria and the polydipsia. So, more thirstiness will be there and more ingestion of water will takes place. Next gland is the after the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland, next gland is called as a thyroid gland. So, this thyroid gland is basically it is a bilobed structure, and here the two lobes of the thyroid glands lie each side of the trachea just below the larynx. So, this thyroid gland, if you see that they have a numerous sac-like structure called as a thyroid follicle. This thyroid follicle is very important here, because thyroid follicle are different in size, and inside this thyroid follicle important structure is there, that is called as a thyroglobulins. That thyroglobulins are present in the colloidal portion. So, this is the colloidal portions where the thyroglobulins are present, that is called as a Tg, and inside this Tg that will help in the formation of different thyroidal hormone like T3 and T4, means triiodothyronine and the tetraiodothyronine. So, that is why this colloidal of the thyroid follicle is very important, because it contains the numerous vesicle like form, that is called as a thyroglobulin. This thyroid gland secrete two major hormones, important hormone. One is called as a thyroxine, that is T4, and the triiodothyronine, that is called as the T3. So, T4 and T3 is synthesized in the thyroid gland. Within the connective tissue between the thyroid follicle lie another connection of endocrine cells, that is called as a C cells, or called as a parafollicular, or called as a medullary cells. So, between the thyroid follicle another type of cells are present, that is called as a C cells or parafollicular cells or medullary cells, and these cells produce very important hormone, that is called as a calcitonin. So, calcitonin have very important role in the regulation of the blood calcium. So, when we will talk about the calcium regulation by the different hormone, at that time we will discuss the role of the calcitonin, what it do, how it help in regulation of the calcium level in the body. Now, we see how the synthesis of thyroid hormone is taking place. So, synthesis of thyroid hormone taking place in the thyroglobulin, that already have told that is present in the colloidal portion, that present in the follicular cavity. So, for the synthesis of thyroid hormone, two important parameters are there, that two important requirement is there. One is the iodine is required and another is the tyrosine is required. So, tyrosine is the amino acid and iodine is there that we are consuming every day. The iodized salt what we are consuming every day, that is the source of the iodine, and tyrosine is also the amino acid which are consuming through it coming through the diet. So, these are the two important essential for the formation of the thyroid hormone. So, iodine, as we know that iodine is consumed through the diet, it is get converted into the iodide, and then this iodide is getting absorbed from the gastrointestinal tract. So, later on in the next slide we will show you how the thyroid are getting into the thyroid follicle and how it will help in the formation of the T3 and T4 hormone. Then tyrosine, as I told, that it also consumed through the diet and is absorbed from the gastrointestinal tract. So, for the synthesis of normal quantity of thyroid hormone, approximately 1 milligram of iodine is required per week. So, nowadays the iodized salt is mandatory to eat because of the earlier days one important disease there, that is called as a goiter. So, goiter was very prevalent earlier days because the people have the deficiency of the iodine. So, that is why nowadays it is mandatory to eat the iodized salt because that is necessary for the synthesis of the thyroid hormone. So, to prevent iodine deficiency, common table salt is iodized with 1 part of the sodium iodide to around 1 lakh part of the sodium chloride. So, NaCl, in the NaCl whatever the salt we are eating, in that they are adding few quantity of iodide salt. So, now these are the stages for the synthesis of the thyroid hormone. So, there are basically 6 stages there. One is the thyroglobulin synthesis there, then iodide trapping, whatever the iodide is there that we are consuming, that getting means absorbed through the GI tract, then they are coming for the synthesis of the T3 and T4 hormone. The oxidation of that iodide will takes place because the iodide itself will not bind to the thyroglobulin. It should be get oxidized into elementary iodine. Once it will not form the elementary iodine, it will not bind to the thyroglobulin. So, that is why the oxidation is of iodide is very important for the formation of elementary iodine. Then the transport of that iodine into the follicular cavity, then iodination of the tyrosine. Iodination of tyrosine means then the formation of monoiodotyrosine and diiodotyrosine, and finally there will be the coupling reaction. Coupling reaction means if two monoiodotyrosine will combine together, they will form the diiodotyrosine, and if one diiodotyrosine and one monoiodotyrosine will combine, they will form the one T3, and if two DID will combine together, they will form the T4. So, that is called as a coupling reactions. So, they are all taking place. So, this is the diagram where it will be very easy for you to understand how the synthesis of thyroid hormone will takes place. So, I told that iodide form of iodine whatever we are ingesting, that are coming absorbed through the digestive tract, and it will take through the one channel is there, that is called as a NIS, sodium iodide symport. So, through this iodide will enter into the follicle, and then this follicle will get oxidized into the elementary iodine by the help of enzyme that is called as a peroxidase. So, I told that oxidation of iodide is very important because the formation of the elementary iodine. And before that, here we can see how the thyroglobulin synthesis is taking place. This thyroglobulin synthesis is taking place in the endoplasmic reticulum, and then it will go into the Golgi apparatus and it will packed into a vesicle, and then these thyroglobulins will remain in the follicle and they come into the outside of the follicles where the iodine will bind with the thyroglobulin, and that is called as the iodination and the coupling reactions. And this iodine and coupling reaction is enhanced by important enzyme that is called as a peroxidase, and then there is formation of different monoiodotyrosine, diiodotyrosine, T3 and T4 formation will takes place, and all this formation will takes place, but it will remain in a follicle only, it will not coming out of the follicle. So, it will remain in the follicle, and then it will again enter into the thyroid follicle by the pinocytosis process, and inside the follicle different enzymes are there, and one of the enzymes is called as a protease that will help in the breakdown of this follicle, and then the release of the T3 T4 hormone will takes place. And what happens, only 25% of this part whatever is there in the colloid follicle will come as in the form of T3 and T4. Major part will go as a monoiodotyrosine and the diiodotyrosine, and then again one important enzyme is there that is called as a deiodination. Deiodination will takes place, and whatever the iodine is there that will be released, and again this cycle will be continue. and whatever the 25% is released in the form of T3 and T4, that will come into the circulation and that will do their actions. So, this is the how means synthesis and release of the thyroid hormone will takes place. Then storage of the thyroglobulin means it is this thyroid gland is a very unusual type of endocrine glands because it have a ability to store in a large amount of hormone in a follicle, and whenever the requirement will be there at that time it will come out of the follicle. So, that is why means deficiency of thyroid hormone will not takes place once its formation will takes place. So, up to 2 to 3 months if you will not provide the means that one iodine, then also the synthesis has been taking place because it will synthesize and remain stored in a follicles. Now, how the transport is taking place and what is the potency of the T3 and T4 hormone? It is said that around 90 to 93% of the metabolically active hormone secreted by the thyroid gland is T4 and only 7 to 10% in the form of a T3. So, it is transported by different transporters are there. One is called as a thyroxine binding globulin TBG, then another is called as a trans-thyretin, also called as a thyroxine binding prealbumin, and another one is called as a albumin. Now, if you talk about the potency, it is said that T3 is around 4 times more potent than the T4. Triiodothyronine is 4 times more potent than the T4, but the duration of action for the T4 is 4 times that of the T3. Duration of action for T4 is more than that of the T3. Why it is so? Because of the affinity for the plasma protein. T4 have more affinity toward the plasma protein, that is why they have the more duration of action compared to that of the T3. If you talk about the half-life of T4 is around 7 days, but for half-life of T3 is only 10 to 24 hours. So, half-life of T4 is much higher in compared to that of the T3. Now, what are the functions of the thyroid hormone? The function of the thyroid hormone is that it will increase the BMR, basal metabolic rate, it will increase the lipolysis and the glycolysis in the cells, also it will increase the conversion of cholesterol to bile salt. Now, another important function of thyroid hormone is that on the growth and the development is that this thyroid hormone help in the maturation of the nervous system. So, if the thyroid deficiency will be there in the earlier stage of development, the mental development of a child or animal will not takes place because this thyroid hormone help in the maturation of the nervous system. Another thing is that puberty will be delayed and the ovulation will be hindered in the hypothyroidal female. In the case of female, if the deficiency will be there, the puberty will be delayed and the ovulation will be hindered. Also, in case of the male, the sperm production will be greatly reduced in the hypothyroidic male. Then already told that it will help in the nerve conductions. So, reflexes will be slow. If the deficiency of thyroid hormone is there, then the reflex will be slow and also the mental ability will takes place. Then it will thyroid hormone maintain the blood flow and the cardiac output, and also skin integrity is maintained by the thyroid hormone. And in case of the amphibians, the thyroid hormone controls the metamorphosis, means the formation of one stage to the another stage is mainly maintained by this thyroid hormone. So, in this way today we have completed the what are the hormones that is secreted from the hypothalamus, then we have seen the pituitary gland and their hormones, and then finally we have seen what is the thyroidal hormone and how its synthesis is taking place and what are the important functions of the thyroid hormone. That is the end of the today's lecture. Thank you.